Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kona 2 cast. I am your guest host of the week, Dan Wilkins, filling in for our good friend Connor Spradling, who is under the weather this week. He has given me the honors of filling in his place. And of course, we are with our usual suspects, Nico Servideo and Braden Korioth. Obviously, you guys have.
Yes,
Yes, I did get it, Braden. I did. But
you got it
you
right.
guys, being longtime viewers of the show, know these two very well. You might recognize me from last week being the guest, and I gotta say, it was a quick turnaround going from being the guest last week to being the host this week.
Guys taking over.
Um, definitely, I am on my redemption arc to say the least. But um, obviously, a lot of stuff going on in the world every week, as it is all the time. But you guys feeling good tonight?
Yeah,
I
I'm
tell
doing
you what,
good.
I'm feeling pretty good. I just had a giant thin crust pizza from Pizza Hut,
Thin crust,
and
huh?
oh yeah, big
Not
thin
not
crust guy.
not pan pizza? Not going
No,
with that?
no, I'm all thin crust,
Huh. Interesting. I mean,
thin crust every day of the week.
it's not the worst option in the world. I would go with Domino's, and then I would go if I had to go with
I can't
Pizza
get
Hut.
Domino's where I am, so
And they don't have Domino's in Florida?
no, they have Domino's. I mean, I can't order it. It's too
Oh.
far.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. The
Yeah, it's just
Domino's
outside of my
the
range, technically.
Domino's around me is open until 3 in the morning, even on like a
Oh, that's
Tuesday.
beautiful.
That's
I
beautiful,
Three
can
in the
yeah.
only
morning, that's wonderful.
I can only get Domino's if I go to Webster. That's it.
Huh. Interesting. Funny enough, I speaking of late night cravings, I had Waffle House for the first time last night.
I
Um,
saw
we
that
we,
for
we
the
were
first time.
well, they don't have them in Jersey. We are a Denny's republic.
Oh
We
wow,
have
man,
we have a
Waffle
lot of
House is
Denny's, and
next
don't get me
level.
wrong, Denny's is fine. I've had Denny's many times in many different places
I didn't
at many different
I
times of
didn't look at
day.
your review, but did it blow your mind? Like, was it? How'd you think? What'd you think?
I think the experience blew my mind. Yeah, they were so we were in the middle of nowhere in Maryland. So we were coming back from the Orioles game. I didn't want to pay for parking at the stadium, so we drove up to a train station north of Towson University and took the light rail down to the stadium, took the light rail back, hopped in our car after the game was done, and um, then we went to a Denny's that was way in the middle of nowhere. I think it was in Paradise Hills, if you want to look that up. Way out of the off the beaten path, whole bunch of deer on the side of the road, scared the crap out of me. But it was great. I mean, $22 for two people having breakfast at 11:30 at night, not bad. The only people in the restaurant were the waiter and the cook, and that was it. Um, they were playing the like Southern gospel music. I don't know what you want to call that,
Hell
but
yeah,
like the
hell
hallelujah,
yeah,
everybody stand up and start
oh
waving their
yeah,
hands. Yeah, I mean,
oh
I
yeah.
felt like I was in South Carolina, even though I was in Northern Maryland. It was really funny,
Yeah.
but no, it was a great experience. I had two eggs scrambled because I can be a little kid. There's no age restriction to scrambled eggs. I had sausage, toast, and hash browns. It was great, and like I said, 21.75 for two people. I'll take that any day.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. It was clean for
nice.
what I thought a Waffle House would be, and I thought I was going
Oh man,
to.
that food's good.
I thought,
Nice and
I
clean.
mean, I've heard things about Waffle House where it's like, oh, people are going to get into fights and like, somebody's going to pull out a gun or
You know,
something. But
there's Waffle Houses in the areas where things like that might happen. I mean, that's everywhere though.
yeah, but this was like countryside, I didn't feel threatened at all or anything. It was nobody on the
Did you get a
road.
waffle?
My friend did. He got a chocolate chip waffle.
Oh, all right.
I mean, it is
Waffles are
Waffle
pretty good.
House, Yeah. It's like going to IHOP and not getting pancakes, but there's not too many places. I don't know what the case is in Florida for you, Braden, and I don't know what the case is up in New York, but we don't have a lot of 24-hour places anymore. Like
Oh,
even some of
dude,
the
there's Waffle
McDonald's.
Houses. There's a 24/7 Whataburger right across the street from me.
Whew,
Uh, literally Waffle Houses everywhere.
what a
McDonald's is
burger,
open
really.
24/7. Well,
Oh yeah,
Walmart was open 24/7, but that closed after COVID. They
yeah,
stopped doing that.
definitely COVID messed up the Walmarts. They close around 11 for us now, and
Yeah,
they are a little
yeah.
sketchy. I'll say that at night. But the thing is that Jersey is the diner capital of the world. We have so many like hole in the wall diners, and they all used to be, or at least most of them used to be 24 hours. Now there's only, I think somebody did a survey. There's only 15 to 20 left in the state that are 24 hours. And
What?
yeah, it's crazy. Like my favorite diner, for the local viewers, like Alex Mullen is a local viewer. He sent me a message the other day because he's from Cumberland County, or he's from Salem County. I'm sorry, about 30 minutes south of me. And he was like, "Hey, I didn't realize how close you were to me." But Black Horse Diner in Mount Ephraim, New Jersey, excellent diner. Used to be open 24 hours. Now it's only open until 10:30 at night, and it only opens at 6:30 a.m. Like, if you're going to be leaving really early for work, like if you're leaving at 5:30, 6 o'clock, your options are really limited. But yeah,
Yeah.
diners are a staple here. But you guys are also lucky because you have one of my favorite things down in Florida. You have Wawa, which is
I've never been
basic.
to a Wawa.
They don't have the. I mean, I know I see them almost on every corner in
Pretty sure
Florida,
it's like
along
more
with
of a
Publix.
central South Florida thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're up near the
Because like I said,
Panhandle. That's right.
I'm up on the Panhandle, like up on the Panhandle as west as you can go on the Panhandle,
So closer
next
to
to
Alabama.
Alabama and
Yeah,
Mississippi.
yeah, I
Oh yeah,
forgot about
like
that
yeah. I,
because
I
we went to
whenever I say it, go ahead.
we went to Tampa a couple of years ago, and I remember just seeing them like every 3 blocks, like gas stations, basically.
Yeah, I've never seen a Wawa,
I've never
but
seen a Wawa.
anytime I ever say it, I say that I basically live in Alabama. My parents and anyone else that lives here that's like hardcore Florida, they're like, oh, don't say that. But I mean, it's pretty much the truth.
Yeah,
I
and
live
that's how it
like
is.
in like this should be Alabama. I'm like pretty sure that's how the state borders used to be, or the country's borders whenever Spain had Florida. I mean, I
Hmm.
literally am living in Alabama.
Basically, yeah.
Anyways,
Enough about
Roll Tide.
Waffle House, although I could talk for hours about Denny's and Waffle House, just like how the waitresses always call you sweetie and all that good stuff, or sweetheart. That's a great thing. It's a great thing about the South. But it is time to talk about some of the leagues. Obviously, this is something that Connor would lead with usually on the weeks, but with this being, I believe, episode number 12 or 13, you guys would know more than I do. I'm not good with numbers, so um, we'll get started
But
without wasting much time. Braden, Nico, any stuff with Essex this week?
I'll let Connor go. Not Connor. I'll let Braden go first with this one.
um, I mean, honestly, I this race is kind of like a blur to me now because I ran two other leagues. I ran three leagues in one weekend. I've never done that before, so and the Essex one was easily the worst race of them all. So
I
it's
heard
not
a
the
lot of
easiest thing
things
to.
about it, and I obviously joined the league, signed up last week. Heard it was Talladega, right? And it was a lot of problems.
Daytona.
Daytona.
Okay, one of the two had a lot of problems.
So pretty much the week before, or maybe it was 2 weeks before, the Velocity Racing League, the new uh, league made by Zach Hillier, they ran there and they had this specific setup, and apparently it was like really good. They loved it. I don't know, Nico. Nico, what did you think of it?
It was decent enough. I was able to feel safe, but there wasn't many cars there for the race, so we couldn't really get a good idea of what it would do in a big pack.
So we went into the race with this setup, and it was a total disaster. And the reason is because I guess someone um, either forwarded the server too soon or just forgot something, and the setup switched to default fast. And for some reason, the
Yeah,
default fast setup on that track was just really bad. It had like 65 on grill tape,
Yep.
that's rough.
and yeah, it was. I mean, I couldn't. It was like actually probably the worst NR race I will ever have and have ever had.
And we
And
were overheating engines.
yeah, we were blowing engines by just running. And it wasn't even a thing where it's like, oh, if you get in dirty air it might happen. No, if you were riding around by yourself full throttle, you just blow up.
Well, that's what I was saying is like,
So,
like I don't see it a lot, but I thought it would have been a case of if you, not just dirty air, but if you were drafting too heavily, like if you were too close to the person behind you and you just kept
That
holding and
was
holding and
a
holding.
that was a theory I had in the early parts of the race because the setup was also broken in the fact that the draft physics were just absolutely broken.
Yeah.
Say you were in the front of the pack behind someone, you would get draft off of that car, right? If you were
Uh-huh.
in the back of the pack behind like the 20 in front of you, you would be catching the draft off of every single one of those cars and you'd be like 50 miles an hour faster, it felt like. So you'd just fly into them and you'd have to like brake
It's like
so
the
you didn't just
2011
fly into
effect,
the back of the
basically,
pack.
or the 2012 effect,
Dude, it
rather.
was it was
Yeah.
crazy. It caused multiple wrecks in the beginning of the race, and like Kez had to let everyone know that the draft was broken. So if you're in the back of the pack, please be careful.
I mean,
So pretty much the whole race.
I'm not here to like, make decisions in retrospect for Connor or for Kez, but if this problem was noticed in like the first 5 or 10 laps out of a 50, 60 lap race, I would have just said, screw it, we're backing out. Everybody gets a mulligan, a do-over, and we start over. We've done that before in score where same mistake happened. Somebody forwarded the server too soon. We had a mistake with the setup where it was an easy setup instead of, because we have used default fast a lot. I'm not good with setups, so if we trust the default fast the way that it was meant to be used with the track, then I'll do that either way. But we had a similar situation, and then a lot of the people who knew more than me, like Daniel Rivera, Thomas Troxel, they were running the race, and after practice, they were like, these race laps feel way different than practice, or these happy hour laps feel way different than practice. And I was just like, maybe you're running the car a little differently. But they're like, no, this is a different setup. And we said, I kind of conferenced with everybody when we went under caution. I was like, is this like a legit problem? And somebody looked at it and they were like, yeah, setup was wrong. So, and this was a short track race, so we were about 10 laps in out of 125. We said, yeah, we'll just reset, forget about all that, and then start again. Again, I don't know what Connor or Kez's situation was. They could have been running behind, but in my personal opinion, if you're having a situation where the setup is just completely wrong, then as long as you're not in an extreme time crunch, back out, start over, and correct the mistake. I feel like that could have avoided a lot of the controversy that we saw from this past week.
I think we were already halfway in
It
though
was a, it
when
was
we
a mix
first
of two
noticed it.
things. It was definitely a mix of two things. It was one, the fact that in the early parts of the race there were just so many cautions
Yeah.
Right.
that we couldn't really find out what the issue was. And by the time we really started to find out what it was, we were like 30-ish laps in,
Oh,
Yeah.
and the league already runs so late at night. It was, I
yeah.
don't think, they looked at it. I don't
And
think
that's
that thought even popped
understandable.
in mind to restart.
That's very understandable. And I think that I did forget that you guys run at like 11:30, and like for us, we run at 8 o'clock. So it's, if we have a problem, we'll end at 9:30 instead of 9:15. It's a much different issue for you guys. But yeah, that's a good point as well, where there were so many cautions where you didn't notice that the setup was even wrong because you didn't have a chance to have somewhat extended green flag run. So that's another thing about it. But I mean, also, like when we have issues with setups, even when you're having like a caution run or when you're in happy hour, because we always run a 5 minute happy hour before the race starts, just like people can take a bathroom break, get a bottle of water, whatever, after qualifying and before the race starts, so that you can just kind of reset. Some people run practice laps and they say, hey, this isn't right. Or even when they're in their qualifying, they say, hey, this isn't right. So I'm not faulting Connor or Kez for not, resetting anything, especially because you guys run so late at night. But I think that with Essex being relatively new, that's going to be some of the growing pains that will happen. It's happened to us. It's happened to basically every other league. You're going to have just bad nights. We've had
Oh yeah,
some
the
we've
growing
had
pains
some
have been
stinkers of
pretty crazy.
races in the early years, and we still have bad races now and then. Not bad in the sense of nobody passes each other, because we've had plenty of those, but bad races in the sense of just nobody knows how to drive and everybody's got their head screwed on backwards. So that is going to be something. And to Connor and Kez, that should not be a point of discouragement. You are going to have bad races. you are going to have races that will seriously doubt whether you want to run another week
Oh
of
yeah,
that
trust
league.
me, trust me. We've
So
already had that
I
go
would
on, and
say a
I mean,
personal note to them, keep on pushing, because even if you had a bad week, because everybody seems to agree that, like, whatever happened at Daytona, it happened, and you just move on. You forgive and forget, because we've had plenty of bad races and people are still showing up every week. So that's how I see it.
yeah, we've already had many conversations about how to move forward after the first 4 races, because out of the first 4, 3 of them have been considered absolute disasters. So
Anything from you, Nico?
we're still trying to get it ironed out.
I mean, that whole night as a whole kind of used up my
Oh,
year's supply worth of
um,
luck. Um, because
gosh, Nico will probably touch up on it, but at
I
the end of the race there was a total. It
I
was
was
I completely forgot.
yeah. So coming to the final restart, I was second to last maybe, and then coming to green, I get spun by the 41, just not paying attention.
Hmm.
So I'm figuring race is over, right?
And who
And
was
then we
the
get to the
41?
point, speed miles.
Okay, doesn't ring a
So
bell.
we get to the point of no return, and for whatever reason, all hell breaks loose. You get multiple um, big wrecks going on at once. Luckily, I'm so far back that I have time to react and see where an opening is. I go from about 17th or so on the final restart to third.
Whew.
And since the winner on track got DQ'd for lap back procedures, so I initially finished fourth, but I got put back up to third, and I believe that puts me in the championship lead going
Hmm.
into Kansas.
Good.
So I ended up passing Braden on the on the front stretch, and I put in the
Because someone or 2 people decided to throw a total tantrum that I have never seen before, like none other.
and then I
And
put
I've
I
seen
put it
some
in the
bad tantrums.
I put
You
it
know what we're talking about, huh?
I do not. I've mm,
Did you hear
no,
about it at all?
I heard something about somebody said something, but I have no idea. I'm just saying, as a broad statement, I've seen in exactly to NR leagues some really bad and egregious tantrums for no reason.
Oh, this one.
So
So
it enlighten me.
with oh gosh, it was like it was on the final restart. That's right. It was on the final
I think
restart.
so.
After it was like a lap after the final restart. We're coming to the white flag. Oh no, we're coming to 2 to go. And going into turn 1, Keith Hughes is leading, and he's covering the top lane. He kind of just like moves over to get his car more again on the wall, so someone didn't try and make that like dumb pass on the outside that would just wreck everyone,
Yeah.
and try and make that impossible gap. He just kind of squeezed up. He got himself securely against the wall, and someone was getting draft behind him, and they kind of went to the
So
right a little
did he
bit.
hit the wall or go like right next to it?
No. He just got up against the wall. That's all he did.
Okay.
And the person behind him considered it like an egregious block, even though Keith moved like a foot to the right.
Hmm.
And the car coming up behind him had a run, and they just kind of bumper grabbed themselves. They just drove into the back of Keith and bumper grabbed themselves, which resulted in a massive wreck. And then on the white flag, as the leaders are coming around in turns 3 and 4, there's 2 cars sitting in the middle of the track after they got, quote unquote wrecked, even though they did it to themselves. They turned up into the leaders and caused a whole disaster, which caught me up in it as I was running 3rd place.
Hmm.
And yeah, I couldn't believe it.
A
That
tale of
sounds
two
bad.
dooms.
No, it was bad. It was awful. It was
It also doesn't
I don't
help
know,
that
man.
the net code in those online races, especially on super speedways, is notoriously bad. We, I'm not trying to make everything that I say about my own league, but just from my personal experiences, when we,
You own a league. I mean, you
I
can
mean,
say there's
when
nothing
we
wrong with
look at penalties,
that.
for example, I try to look at every single possibility to see if netcode was involved in the crash, because you can absolutely miss making contact with somebody. and you can still wreck them without even hitting what on your screen looks like a hitbox, and that's one of the complicated things about NR leagues is that you can wreck somebody by breathing on them the wrong way, and that's what makes super speedway racing so popular because it part of it is what makes it popular is that everybody goes into there thinking I have a chance at winning this, and then everybody goes out of there thinking, damn, that was a bad race, or damn, I got screwed over. Um,
That's why I hate super speedway racing on
and but
NR4.
people love it for that reason. People that have no shot at winning on a road course or a short track or any other type of track, as long as you can go in a straight line and turn left for 4 times every lap,
You're
then
golden.
you can run a super speedway race, which is why they have better numbers. But at the same time, you know, it's also more dangerous because the act of running a super speedway race, especially in those big packs, makes it so that drafting is way different than what it would be in the real world because you can just go up to somebody. You don't even have to hit them. You could just be right in line with somebody and you go a little too far and their car spazzes out and causes a 20 car pileup and you got those tornadoes on the front stretch. But that's one of those things about NR super speedways that infuriate some and also get some joy out of others is that they love the thrill of like it being a survival conquest where 30 cars show up who will be the last to survive basically. um so yeah, that's nothing new. What I just said is nothing new. It's just in a different way of saying it. But, people are always going to be upset about the outcome of a super speedway race if they don't win. It's either win or go home for those. And you're not really thinking about points in those situations. And Essex is still relatively, correct me if I'm wrong, still relatively early in the season because it's 14 races, right? And
Yeah,
they're in
we're on
four or
race 4.
five. Yeah, so
Yeah,
these guys, especially the ones that aren't competing full time, they're not worried about the points. They're worried about winning, and that's half of the super speedway drivers. They don't care about the points because they're not running this full season anyway. They're only running Talladega and Daytona. So yeah. I mean, like I said, what I said is nothing new, but it's just it's the first time coming out of my mouth.
Right.
So yeah, that's your Essex news. Before we get on with score, before I go on my tangent, anything from you guys about other leagues that you ran this week?
I ran Zach Hillier's league,
Velocity.
VRL, and they went to Sonoma, and I got a 4th place finish. I've never finished top 5 on a road course. I was pretty stoked about that.
Very nice.
I am not the best road course doer. So yeah.
How many cars showed up?
I don't remember. I think it was like 13, 14-ish.
Yeah, not bad. Better than what I could
Not
I
do.
have
I
no
I wouldn't
idea.
be able to finish fourth on a road course.
I do not remember.
Was it
Yeah, but
was
it
the
was around that
Sonoma
range.
that you used, was it the chute or the carousel?
The shoot. It was
Okay.
2023 on the shoot.
That seems like the most popular option. I really wish that they because if I mean obviously Sonoma is not coming back in score next year. We had a couple clunkers of races there, but if I ever wanted to go back to it, I would have loved to run a version of the track that has the green grass instead of the dead grass in the 100-degree heat in the summer. Um, I mean, I've seen pictures of it online. It is so
Oh,
beautiful in like
yes,
March
it's
and April.
absolutely just gorgeous.
And you already go out west. I mean, this is just my thing with NASCAR. I've been saying this for years. They already go out west to Fontana, Phoenix, and Las Vegas in February and March. Go up to Sonoma. I get it, it might be a little colder because you've got the California mountain range up there, but it's nothing that they haven't dealt with before. They dealt with snow for Bristol in 2006, so it's beautiful up there. And what do people want to watch on TV? They want to watch an aesthetically good race. They don't want to watch a race at a track that looks ugly. That's why the Kentucky walls were painted green because they were provocative and they were different and it was bold and bright. The white walls of Kentucky before they were sponsored by Quaker State, made the situation a lot different. People didn't watch a race that was just at a regular old track. You couldn't tell whether it was Las Vegas or whether it was Kentucky or whether it was Atlanta if you weren't paying attention close enough. It was just a NASCAR race at a 1.5 miler to turn left. So Chicagoland too, all those cookie cutters just had the same color of safer barrier. Couldn't tell unless you were looking really close at the TV screen. So, that's the thing is that people on TV, they like to watch things that are bold and bright and have, all these fancy colors to them. And when you see dead grass in the middle of June, not what you're looking for. But
Yeah,
um
I'll never understand it. It doesn't make
yeah,
any sense to me.
but congratulations on your finish.
Thank you.
And
Thank
anything
you. I was
else from
pretty
you guys about
eager for it.
leagues?
And I ran gnarled at Nashville before. That's a
Fairgrounds or
Oh
super speedway?
gosh. Oh god.
fairgrounds.
Oh, okay, bit of a change.
Um, I mean, it's the better Nashville, clearly. But again, with that thing I said about Essex, about using my year supply worth of luck, I was running second, and I got killed by Jerry Cook because he hates me. I'm just kidding, love you, Jerry. Um,
Hi, Jerry.
then it sent me into the middle of the pack, so I got absolutely killed. Um, and then again, point of no return. You got people who aren't as good at the game as maybe you would like. Wreck a couple people, and I somehow get a fifth place finish out of that. So, I don't know, and it also kind of serves true that the next day I almost get ran over by a race car, but yeah, I
What
used up all
happened
my
there?
luck for it's a guy rushing to get out of practice. I just didn't see him coming, just gets me right in the elbow. So we're all good. Nothing's broken.
Oh,
I
Oh
didn't
my
check.
god.
I didn't check to see if there was anything broken anyway. But yeah,
this is
that was a
interesting.
that was a fun day at the track Saturday.
You were at
Yeah.
where were you Saturday?
I was at Wyoming County International Raceway, Perry
Ah,
Wyoming
Bouldering.
County.
Um, yeah, just one guy rushing out to get to practice. I thought that they'd already ran that that class of practice because they already had modifieds and super stocks lined up,
hmm,
and I was going across to watch the modifieds I was working on,
yeah.
and it just go bam.
That happened.
So
That almost happened to me once. I was at where was I? I was a track in Fort Myers, Florida. I don't know why I can't remember it off the top of my head. Um, was it Southern Speedway? Now I gotta look at it.
You'd think
Excuse
that
the
I
slight
would be,
delay.
I feel like I might be able to help, but you'd be surprised
It
on
is a
how
sport.
inept I
It
am.
it is a 417 Southern Speedway. There you
Oh,
go.
I've heard of that place. Oh
Yeah,
shit, I've
so
definitely have heard of that place.
Good friend of mine, Ryan Adama, known as Dr. Danger. He runs there.
Dr. Danger.
That's his online name, but
Dr. Danger. Sorry,
yeah,
I had to do
I never really said it out loud like that, but it is kind of cool.
that.
But
Dr. Danger.
so funny enough, this was February of 2021. We were driving down to Florida. We saw the truck race at Daytona that year. Didn't have money for the Daytona 500 because we weren't there for Daytona. We were there for Disney. Um, and we stopped while we were on the way to Orlando on Saturday at 417. Met him. It was a great thing. First time I, ventured out and met a stranger from the internet, which don't do that, kids. But who cares at this point? Anyways, I was walking across the pit lane and a sprint car was coming in from practice. Obviously, they don't have, like proper brakes. So when they're
right.
coming into the lane, they can't stop. And the lady tells me, move to your left. And then I move to my left. And then she goes, no, your other left. And I'm just like, what? Like, I almost got hit by a winged pavement sprint car, just because this lady didn't know what direction to tell me to move in. But I got an
Yeah.
autograph from the guy, so that
Jesus.
was cool. Right up, actually, hold on, right there, back there, there's a whole bunch of scribbles on my wall. That is, I brought a piece of like styrofoam board, not styrofoam board, but there we go. Poster board is the word I was looking for. I bought it from like CVS or like a Michael's Craft Shop or something. Brought it to the track because I didn't have anything for them to sign. I didn't have any T-shirts. I didn't know who any of the drivers were. I still don't know who some of the drivers are. Some of them are like street stock drivers that I've never heard of, and like they work 9 to 5 jobs basically. But some of them are sprint car drivers. Do you know the Little 500, Anderson, Indiana? The
No.
it's basically the pinnacle of non-winged sprint cars um, on pavement. So not like winged sprint cars
Oh,
as
the little
in
five.
World
Wait,
of
I've heard of it.
Outlaws.
I've heard of the little 500. Dude,
Yeah,
that track is so like.
not like sprint cars as in World of Outlaws, but sprint cars as in like the Little 500, which is like the pinnacle of pavement sprint cars. But yeah, his team raced in that this year. His dad, Scotty, it was the driver. He was like one of the pit crew members and stuff because he works under Adama Racing Enterprises, which his dad owns. But they crashed on lap one, turn one. So his
Hmm.
dad his dad
Damn, that sucks.
is actually recovering from a broken leg from that accident because they went into the tire barriers. But
Hmm.
yeah, he's recovering. But anyways, that's my
Yeah, isn't
tangent
it
about wing
little
sprint cars.
little midgets with
Yeah,
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 little
that's
midgets.
that's what the right term is. But yeah, because there's no room in there, like you're basically just sitting in a cage. You don't have any like
Yeah, that's
leeway
definitely
to
Right.
really
really.
Yeah.
sketchy.
So his throttle hung, went straight into the tire barriers,
Oh my
broke
God.
broke his leg in multiple places, and yeah, luckily
Oh my
he's on the road to
God.
recovery now. So what were we talking about again? We were talking about, oh yeah, Wyoming County, where you got hit by something. There you go.
Yep.
It's a
Oh,
great way to spend time with tangents. But score this week, getting back on track, went to Pocono. First time, I believe, since season two that we went there. A race that Daniel Rivera won all those years ago, and it was won by none other than Apollo Hyde. Led all 50 laps except for, I'm sorry, he led 49. Somebody led one for a pit cycle, but honestly, for what it's worth, a good race. A lot of green flag pit stops that were held well. There were some good battles at the front, even after pit cycles, which is a really hard thing to maintain. Good battles after pit cycles, because after a pit cycle on a 2.5 mile track, everybody's just spread out. Everybody's in their own worlds. So, I had a good battle at the end. Not really any lead changes, but a good stat. Let me just make sure that's right. Yeah, we ran Pocono in season two, which was a race that Daniel Rivera won, and we did not run it in any other season up until this year, which was a race that Apollo Hyde won. That was his sixth career win, which still puts him fourth all time. Still puts him fourth all time in score wins. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this last week. There's a three-way tie for wins, first in wins all time in score. Phil Parker, I'm sorry, there's a four-way tie, four-way. Thomas Troxel, Phil Parker, Jerry Cook, and Jonathan Salos all have 8 career wins. And it's funny because Jerry Cook has never competed in a full season, which doesn't surprise me. But I think the most he ever ran in a race was, or ran in a season, was 6 races. He ran like a half season, but he's still obviously a lot better than most score drivers. So he won 8 races because of that. Apollo Hyde is in fifth with 6 now. Cameron Jamison sits by himself with 4, and then a multitude of drivers have won 2, myself included, and a multitude of drivers have obviously picked up 1. Um, anyways, a good stat from this race was that Apollo Hyde won. Let's see if I can find it here from that. Here we go. So I wrote after the race was over, Apollo Hyde's win at Pocono tonight, his sixth in his career, was his first since season 3 Watkins Glen 531 days ago. That is the second largest gap between wins in
Damn.
score history. So so 531 days ago for his last win, that was January 8th, 2023. So basically a year and a half. And he stepped away from league racing for a while. He runs his own place, Slower is what it's called. It runs in the 1 o'clock slot on Saturdays. But he was the season one champion, won won 4 races, and then he won again in season 3 after going winless in season 2, and then came back and won in season 7 a year and a half later. Now, shockingly, that's not the longest gap between wins. The longest one, you're familiar with Joda Harrison?
Yeah.
So
Never
he
heard of him.
won season 1 Daytona in the 28 car, and then won season 6 Daytona 533 days apart, that being July 10th, 2022 and January 14th, 2024. So he went an entire calendar year, basically, and a half without a win. The other notable ones on that list were Daniel Rivera, which was season 2 Pocono and season 5 Las Vegas, 321 days. Cameron Jamison, season 5 Atlanta and season 7 Kentucky, that's 273 days. And Cole Rodriguez, season 5 Talladega and season 7 Talladega, 252 days. I mean, that's not as impressive as Joda and Apollo, because those were season 1 and season 6, and then season 3 and season 7, 500 days apart. Incredibly impressive. But um, I really wish more leagues kept stats like this, because we've been running since the end of my sophomore year in high school, and now I'm almost ready to go to college. I'm moving in starting next month, or I'm starting to move stuff in. Like I said, I'm splitting time with my cousin, so I've got to move in furniture, and I've got to move in certain stuff. But instead of moving in on one day, I have the entire summer to start moving stuff in and moving stuff around, which is great for me. But Score finishes out their season 7 with Richmond, Daytona, and Homestead. Richmond is this Sunday. Daytona follows that, and Homestead follows that. All-Star race July 17th at Chicagoland. Um, Obviously, Cole Rodriguez running away with it. It's a two-way battle between Flandre, Wilson, and Cole Rodriguez. I have no idea how I'm in third. I think it's just because I've shown up for 9 weeks in a row, but that's basically how it is at this point. I mean, I'll take a third place point finish anytime. I finished second in the season 1 standings, falling by, I think it was 44 points to Apollo. So I'll take that any day of the week. Season 7, going from not even finishing in the top 15 of my own league's standings, going to third, I'll take that. But that's basically what's going on in our world. If you're in the score circle, a big announcement is coming Sunday. Like I said, I checked my notes. I have 13 things that are being changed or modified or added or removed. So there you go. I mean, you'll have to wait until Sunday to see what it is. Maybe if I hop on the podcast next week, I think I'm appearing on the McBasket cast. I think it's either next week
Oh
or
wow.
2 weeks from
Oh
now.
jeez.
I've been in talks with Tristan
Oh
to
no. Oh.
to talk with that. Am I in for a special treat?
Um. Yeah. I don't want to say anything.
I mean, that's probably not something that I'll promote on my business channels, but I don't know how he is. I mean, you guys treated the interview with me last week with a lot of professional decorum and respect, and I felt like I was like being given this honor, but obviously Connor being sick, kind of threw me into the role. But yeah, I'll have to see what's going on with Tristan, because he didn't want my appearance on the Kona cast being too close to my appearance on the McBasket cast. So I'm kind of making the rounds on these NR podcasts. I'll have to see how it ends up falling with me for Tristan. But I don't know. Your laugh when I mentioned that I was going to be on the McBasket cast definitely
Eh,
it worried me.
take a listen to the last episode and you might see what I'm talking about.
Might be a career ender for me.
No, not that bad.
Not too bad.
Not that bad at all.
All right, so that's basically all we got for leagues. Anything
Well, I
going
wanted to
on
talk about
else?
score. I was in the race.
Oh yes, yes, in your
I was in
your
the
Yankees
event
car.
in the Yankees '69 car. I
Finished top
absolutely,
five.
I was sixth, not top five, sixth.
Oh, shows you how much I know my
Unless
own league.
unless someone got disqualified, I don't know about, but
No, no,
I
no.
finished
I
sixth.
no. I'll check again.
But yeah, I was. pretty stoked about that, as it's my only second ever start, and the one start I did make at Chicagoland about a year ago was disastrous. Well, not disastrous, but I just couldn't. It was, yeah, it was a little bit of a mess. Yeah, I'm an absolute, I've really refrained from saying anything too out of pocket here, but I will say it. I am an absolute sucker for some Pocono. I love me some Pocono. So I was pretty excited. That's pretty much the reason I made the start. And I got involved in the first wreck, and then that was it for me, really. I just kind of drove my own race past the people that either quit or blew up or whatever. I don't know. What happened to you, Nico?
I just left. I don't like Pocono that much.
Oh, man, that is more Pocono for me then. Yummy, yummy, yum. Yeah, after all the cars just kept dropping out, I picked up my spots. I really didn't. I had one battle at like the very end, and I just had to hold the 40, I think, the 42 or the 40. I don't know what number they
40,
were, but I had to
42.
hold them
That
off.
was Sebastian Amaya, somebody that's new.
Yeah, I had to hold them off for a little bit. I mean, it really wasn't much of a holding off. For one lap, they were like a second behind me, and then after that, they faded pretty quick after the last pit stop.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna
yeah,
say,
I mean,
yeah, you
I love
had,
Pocono.
yes, you did have P6. Top five was Apollo Hyde, Niall Gallagher, Zach Hillier, Cole Rodriguez, and Cameron Jamison. As we said, 9 races have been run this year. Cole Rodriguez has finished top five in 7 of them. The ones where he did not, if I pull up my spreadsheet real quick here, let me just take a quick look because I know he finished outside the top five in 2 races so far. Let's see, score points. Yeah, so 3 wins, 7 top 10s, and 7 top 5s, 2 poles too. His non-top 5 finishes were Kentucky. I'm sorry, Texas and Kentucky. Yes, because he took a provisional at Kentucky, and that still gave him 36 points. So not the worst thing that could happen, but Kentucky he finished. I think. Or, I'm sorry, Phoenix he finished. No, not Phoenix. I'm sorry. I keep saying that. Texas. He finished um, outside of the top 10. I think he was in 11th. That was the race to Keon Daly won, as we were talking about. Ran the first race at season 1 Talladega and then didn't win until season 7. 6 seasons, 4 of them full time without winning. Definitely a very long feat for him. But right now, your top 10 in score points. Rodriguez first, Wilson second, Wilkins third, Crystal Bennett in fourth, Jonathan Salos, last year's champion, in fifth. The fellow known as Fernando Alonso, under the alias, is in sixth. Caleb Rose in seventh. Dakota Vega in eighth. He reportedly is returning next week at Richmond after a brief hiatus. Dallas Shake in ninth, and Keon Daly in 10th. Those are the 10 drivers that would qualify automatically for the All Star race. There are top 10 drivers in points at the end of the season qualify for the All Star race, including any winners. So right now, Cameron Jamison, despite being 19th in points, would still qualify because he won. Same with Apollo Hyde and Natani Degenhart because the 3 of them won races and got to qualify for the All Star race because of that. But
Yeah, maybe throw me in there for
well, you'll have to win the
record a
fan vote.
podcast with you.
You'll have to win
Ah,
the fan vote. I'm not corrupt.
I'll
Who do you
figure that
think?
out.
Who do you think I am?
It would be too big of a deal. Just throw the 69 car in there. No one will bat an eye.
You plan on running next week?
I do. I do plan on running next week. I tell you what, I got me a little taste of that score action, and I need more of it.
Yeah, hopefully we have a good end of the season. And like I said, lobby's opening at 6:30 next week because of our press conference. But we've got about 15 minutes left on our run time, so we'll be done talking about the leagues. We talked about basically what there is to talk about. A lot of news in the NASCAR world. First things first, Truex did not have to wait long to see who his replacement and his successor would be in the 19. Christopher Bell did his best. There's this one account on Twitter that I cannot say on the air, but they are known for making accurate leaks about NASCAR news. They have a profile picture of Dick Trickle. I just cannot say their name on air. They didn't exactly get this one right, but Christopher Bell let us in on a little secret that Chase Briscoe is going to the 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. Definitely a bit of a change, and it's interesting to see that at least one of the four Stewart-Haas drivers has already found their home less than 3 weeks after it was announced that SHR is closing after the 2024 season. I assumed a couple weeks ago you guys mentioned or had a good discussion about Stewart-Haas and their conundrum on your show with Connor, but one of the drivers has already found their new home, and that's Chase Briscoe. Your thoughts on that, Braden?
I mean, I honestly don't really know what to think. I mean, shit, dude, that was like the last guy I expected. I mean, that guy's blue blood Ford, which I thought.
Yeah.
But I understand that SHR is just absolutely falling apart, and I guess Joe Gibbs thinks Briscoe is the best guy available. They don't want to give Eric Jones another shot. They're going to keep John Hunter Nemechek to the side. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of who else maybe.
I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
right now, two of the four drivers, I mean, it's pretty much expected that Cole Custer is going to be going to that Haas factory team that Gene Haas is running to stick around.
That's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting, and I don't know how they're going to do because the 41 car hasn't been that successful since Kurt Busch was there, even when Daniel Suarez was there.
Here's what I
And
think.
yeah,
That team is going to be what it was in the early 2000s, and it's going to be a backmarker because Gene Haas is awful at running motorsports teams. I feel like that is
you see that
proven.
in F1. I was saying you see that in F1.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
NASCAR.
Yeah,
I feel like
and
he
I mean, don't get
part
me
in running
wrong.
that team into the ground.
I mean, let's not act like Stewart-Haas Racing didn't have one of the greatest building blocks of all time that they had when Tony Stewart took over in 2009, because just 2 years, in their third full season, excuse me, after winning or excuse me, after building this team, from Haas Racing, what it was with Johnny Sauter and whoever was, I think David Green was in the it was either David Green or Jeff Green in the 66 all those years ago. They had funding, but Gene Haas just didn't have the results. And then Tony Stewart comes in, '09 goes by, 2010 goes by, and then 2011, boom, Tony Stewart wins the championship. I mean, that's excellent. And they did it while facing some of the greatest adversity of all time with Carl Edwards in that 2011, very famous championship battle and what is often considered the greatest NASCAR season ever. Um, you know, it was a short-lived run. 2011 to like 2017 were their years of glory. And part of that was because they got all the extra money. I think it was 40 or $45 million from the Nature's Bakery lawsuit with Danica Patrick. Correct me if I'm wrong on that,
Oh,
but
wow. I did
uh,
not know that.
well, no, because Nature's Bakery stopped paying Stewart-Haas Racing when they were sponsors on the 10 car because Danica was
Oh, wow.
promoting other food products. You probably should have seen you should watch the Slap Shoes video on this. It's in one of the like one of the liars
I've
and
watched.
thieves and kind of stuff about like the fraudulent
I've probably
sponsors.
seen it because I mean I've seen every Slap Shoes video
But
ever. So
yeah, I mean it was a giant lawsuit and they got the money from it after the tax. It was great. And you got to think about how their 2017 season was so dominant that even though they didn't, win it all that year, Kevin Harvick was still a champion in 2014. Tony Stewart was still a champion in 2011. This is a championship winning race team that over the span of 10 years has gone from being the one of the greatest teams around with an owner driver, which in the 2010s and 2000s was not common. Tony Stewart changed the game with that. They paved the way for teams like RFK with Brad Keselowski, and now other teams are starting to get their star drivers stakes in the company as well because they aren't just employees, they're stakeholders. They are, businessmen in this team because those are the drivers that matter in terms of making teams money and progressing the team forward. RFK was a shameful team 5 years ago.
yeah.
They had Trevor Bayne and whoever you want to throw in the 17, Ricky Stenhouse. And then over that span, don't get me wrong, they've had some clunkers this year. But ever since Brad Keselowski came there, Chris Buescher has become a top 10 driver in NASCAR. And Brad Keselowski has been an excellent team owner over there, or at least part owner. So the fact that RFK is back to where they were in like 2012, 2010, when they had 5 cars running, now they only have 2, but they've got the power that they had 10 years ago. So,
Yeah.
Stewart-Haas is more than just a 4-car operation that runs Fords. They paved the way for the model of the modern owner driver. That probably wouldn't have happened with Keselowski if it weren't for what Stewart-Haas did. So, props to them. But I think that there were just some moves made, as Tony Stewart said, in the management, and as the driver said, with certain decisions that were made that sent the team down in the gutter. They had a couple of shining moments in 2020 and in 2021 with Harvick and Custer, but other than that, they just didn't shine. Now, honestly, I did not expect, and because I wasn't on the podcast when the original news broke that SHR was shutting down, I thought that they were going to pull a Rick Ware and downsize from 4 cars to 1 or 2. That's what I thought was going to happen. I did not expect for Tony Stewart to pull out completely.
Yeah, I didn't expect the entire
I
shutdown.
that was incredibly shocking to me, because like just 5 years ago, or even just 3 years ago with Kevin Harvick in 21, like they were winning like 8-10 races a season, and then they
I
just
mean,
go
they
from
should have.
that to like finishing 30th.
As an Elliott fan, he won the championship in 2020. I mean, it's not even a debate. It's just, the NASCAR playoffs just totally just pulled the rug out from under him, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he won the championship in 2020, no question. And I really wonder maybe if they'd still be around if he won the chip. I don't know.
I mean, that's a thing that can always be debated and debated and debated, but the fact of the matter is that we've got a 4-car team that just a couple of years ago were championship contenders and surefire, championship winners. And now they are going completely in the gutter, with one driver going to Joe Gibbs and the other, going over to this factory team now with Gene Haas. So, I wonder if Tony Stewart has completely, I mean, he has trashed NASCAR a lot in the last couple of years. He has bashed a lot of their decision making at the upper management levels. With like
Which
Elton
is, I
Sawyer and
mean,
Ben Kennedy. It's
it's perfectly granted.
understandable, but he was
It's
one of the most
perfectly granted.
outspoken critics of NASCAR. You would not hear Rick Hendrick complain much because he was winning so much. You wouldn't hear Richard Childress complain that much, or Roger Penske, mostly because he's got his forays in IndyCar and everything. But um, the fact of the matter is, Tony Stewart, as a guy who came over from IndyCar and was a dominant driver, for from 2000 to 2016, you know, he dipped his toes in the water in basically every corner of the sport. He was there when he was winning. He was there when he was losing. He was at the forefront of that. So, and he's one of those guys that he calls out bull when he sees it. So he saw that and he said something, and I do wonder if, you know, he kind of had a bad taste in his mouth after he retired, that NASCAR was going in the wrong direction. And the way I see it is, he is so heavily invested in his NHRA program that if you sell 3 charters, because if Haas keeps one, you sell 3 charters, the going price for them is like 30-40 million dollars now, close to 50. You cash out, who cares? Say bye to the 10, say bye to the 4, say bye to the 14 car. You could care less. For NASCAR, $150 million is a lifetime paycheck. You can retire right now, move into a Florida mansion, and do whatever you want for the rest of your, living years. So I don't blame Tony Stewart. He wasn't happy with the direction that NASCAR was going in, and instead of, I'm not saying NASCAR is a sinking ship, but his team was starting to get there. So you pull out the plug early, you liquidate everything, and you start from scratch. Whether you're going to NHRA or whether he's going to try to invest back into SRX, because SRX, I'm pretty sure, was sold off. Um,
I
but
don't know what
like,
happened to it, but they kind of just, I'm not going to say died, but they didn't run last year, so.
no, and
Or no,
and
they're
that's
not
one of
running
those
this year.
things. That's one of those things where if Stuart Haas had pulled out a couple of years ago, he certainly would have poured so much money into that, and you would have had it on main ESPN channels, and like you would have had. I mean, I don't know if you would have had a lot of people watching it, but that's one of those things where Tony Stewart right now, he pulled off the stock market move extremely well. It didn't make sense for him to pull out the rug from everybody when charter prices were only $5 or $6 million. Right now, charter prices are higher than they have ever been, and they will continue to be higher than they've ever been. And he doesn't see them crashing anytime soon. So he sees the number 45, $50 million for charters. And he say, bye bye race cars. I'll take the money and I'll invest it into something that I actually can get results out of, because he can win championships in NHRA. He can win championships in any of the other sprint car stuff that he puts his money into. So, he can use that money to retire comfortably, way more comfortably than any of us ever will, and also invest some of that back into the projects that he enjoys. He's done with NASCAR, and I think that's the way it's going to be. It's a hard pill to swallow, but Tony Stewart, being the outspoken guy that he is, and we know that from his interviews from over the years, just he is not the kind of person to hold on to a sinking project. And that's what he did with SRX. They weren't doing the best. He sold it and he didn't really come back to it. So that's what he's doing with NASCAR here. He is getting his money while it's at its peak, with charters, because he's not selling all four charters. He only sold, or he's already sold one to Front Row. The other two have yet to be sold, but if those two go through, and somebody's going to pick them up, there's enough eccentric billionaires out there to form a race car team. Maybe Floyd Mayweather and a 50 car end up getting a charter next year. Um,
I know it's probably not going to happen, but fingers crossed, praying to the Lord above that Dale Jr. gets his hand on one.
but I mean, I've listened to a couple of Dirty Mo Media episodes. Does he want one, or is he content with Xfinity? Because he's been talking
Him and
about it.
Amy absolutely want one, but the thing is, I mean, he said over and over again about just how ridiculously expensive it is. But I
It's
feel like he's
crazy.
got the money for it. He's loaded. It's Dale Earnhardt Jr. I mean,
Well, let me ask you
shit.
this, just from an economic question: do we think that the charter prices are going to crash at some point? Because this is giving me like 2007, 2008 stock market vibes, where the cost of housing went up to be incredibly high, and then everything just crashed, and you could buy a house for a price of a VCR. Um, what do we think about that? Do we think that they're going to continue to get higher and higher, because IndyCar charter
Listen,
prices are not going that high right now?
listen. As a whole, I don't like to comment on it much, and I don't say much on the podcast, but because Connor and Dakota think I'm some insane negative Nancy when I say stuff like this, but I think under the surface, NASCAR is not in a good spot, like at all. Like it could be disastrous if things go wrong.
And I
Because
don't
we've
think that
already
you're the
heard
only
these.
one that thinks that way.
No, no, it's just listen. I'm super passionate about it. I love NASCAR. My entire room is covered in diecast and all the stuff, paintings, pictures, everything. Um, with how all the teams have been complaining about how they're not getting shares, they're literally like not making money.
Hmm.
The teams in NASCAR are not even profiting, and
No,
it
they're not.
feels like it feels like these charter prices. It feels like money laundering at this point. It's
Yeah,
pretty much money laundering,
and that's
and I
one of
feel
those
like no one's
that
really seeing the issue here.
that's
The
yeah, no,
money
I
problem in NASCAR is it's a big problem.
Right.
well, that's one of those things where I think a lot of people are right now, because NASCAR has had a good season popularity wise,
Yeah,
where
it's had all
there's
these great
been
races.
there's
I
been
think
great
last
finishes, there's
season.
been great races, great
Yeah,
spectacles, but you look on the economic side, but NASCAR is never going to be, at least in the modern age, what it was from 2004 to like 2007. Everybody that you would look in somewhere in the rural North Carolina area would have a Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson bumper sticker on their pickup truck, because they cared and they went to every race. They watched every race on TV. Now it's a lot harder to watch those races with the streaming services and the crazy high cable prices and cable cutters. The fact that practice and qualifying aren't as accessible, easily accessible as they used to be, definitely makes it a lot more difficult to turn new fans onto the sport. And the fans that are already there are there. They've been there for 20, 30 years. The fans that have already left, they've already left. They're not coming back. So you have what you have. And I think it would be, and this is a radical idea from my part, but it would be a lot better for NASCAR if they started thinking more small market. And I think they're already starting to go that way. They went to Iowa for the first time this year. Not exact, I mean, Iowa's not a big market, but you're not going to wow the world with the Chicago street race. That just feels like they're trying to be too much like IndyCar and F1. If you focus
Yeah.
on the small town communities of America, like if you went back to Chicagoland, you're servicing Chicago, but you're also servicing those Illinois neighborhoods because Southern Illinois can get pretty country. Central Illinois
Right.
can get pretty country. Anything outside of Chicago and Naperville, even all the way over in Joliet, like that's a pretty rural area. You go to Kansas, you go to you could probably renovate some short tracks like Winchester, something like a high banked short track, and run it that way. You could incorporate double headers where the ARCA East or ARCA West series runs a race in the day, and you guys run a race at night, and it's perfect. But that's what I think NASCAR is also leaning towards with the Clash, because there's rumors that the Clash is going to be at Bowman Gray Stadium next year, which is amazing because
That
like
would be unreal.
that is Slapshoe's dream right there. Like I can
Yeah, that would
hear I
actually
can
be
hear the
crazy.
screams all the way over here in New Jersey, 500 miles away from South Carolina. I can hear it from this room, but the thing is that if NASCAR is going to go all in on that, they've got to go all in. They are already alienating fans as is with some of the changes that they've made, and I think it will be best for them if they went all in on that.
Yeah.
Because if
You
you
know,
put all of your
I
chips in the poker table, if you put them all in, then you could really cash out big. But if you only put some in and you're not, willing to take that big swing, you might end up striking out. So that's just my take on it. And I know I've been talking over Braden and Nico for a while. So, Nico, any thoughts on what we just mentioned there?
Um, I mean, it's all pretty spot on. I guess with what NASCAR is doing short term is kind of trying to get it's like that cheap pop in wrestling. You wanna get the big stuff going to where you get the most immediate eyes on your product. But
bringing Hulk
in
Hogan to WrestleMania.
yeah, but then like in the long term, it's gonna start dwindling back down again. So
Yeah, I
I was
feel I've been getting caught up in it myself. I've been getting caught up in the fact that NASCAR's doing all these wow things and the next gen is having all these great races, even though the car itself definitely has its problems. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But it manages to keep producing these finishes, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm just because the past few years I've just been getting so down on the goddamn dumps about how like big the underlying issues are that
Hmm.
I've been finding myself getting caught up in thinking about the good stuff. But, now speaking about this and I think about it, it's like, man, if things go wrong, they can really go wrong. Like the sport has already been going down, but I mean, it could really jump off that cliff and actually die, like people say it's gonna do, which I personally don't believe. But if things fall in the right place and things really go wrong, I mean, it could be disastrous.
It definitely could
We
be.
could
And
be we could get
even
down to
if
like
even
IndyCar
if the
level.
sport doesn't have like that USAC kart split like they had in the 90s, or like IndyCar had in the 90s, I should say. Um, what what worries me is that like the sport is a couple steps from going into the 2017 to 2019 phase, where it
Which is the
was
worst era in the history of the
which
sport.
was incredibly irrelevant, is what I'm saying. Is that the
The
sport can
Monster
run
Energy
just
series
fine.
is
The
a joke.
sport can run just fine. I work for a collegiate summer league that hasn't had a whole bunch of viewership, but they've been running since 1954. A league can run perfectly fine. An organization can run at a large scale perfectly fine if you have the funds to run at said scale. But if NASCAR is in the spot where a charter is going for $50 million, well, are the drivers getting paid $50 million? No, they're probably getting paid five, if I had to guess. Especially not like non-power teams like Hendrick and Joe Gibbs. I'm talking like Front Row Motorsports and RFK. Like I don't have contract information on hand about Michael McDowell, but is he getting paid half the price of a charter? No. Is he worth half the price of a charter? No. He is a NASCAR driver. You could probably find somebody at replacement level who can finish 15th week in and week out. You could probably put, somebody of a similar skill set that's running in the Xfinity series. You could put Justin Allgaier in the 34, and if he got, accustomed and acclimated to the car, he can run 15th every week because Front Row Motorsports right now is not a winning caliber team. They can get there with Todd Gilliland, but they're not there yet. Michael McDowell did it like once. That was it. Just because they won a race at a super speedway doesn't make me that impressed. And you look at the fact that BJ McLeod used to have a charter. Is BJ McLeod worth charter prices? No. Is his entire team worth the price of a charter? No, absolutely not. And you have to look at it from an economic standpoint of supply and demand. Something is only worth a price because that is what people are willing to pay for it. If you sell a PS5 controller on eBay for $500 and it sells, that doesn't mean the controller is automatically worth $500. Just because one person was willing to pay it doesn't mean that it's worth that. The demand says if 20 people go up and pay $500 for a PS5 controller, then you can start saying, okay, this is worth $500, and other prospective sellers are going to put $500 as their starting price tag. So that's the way it is with charters. Charters don't have to be $50 million. I mean, again, I don't know how a NASCAR shop runs, but I don't think it costs $50 million to haul cars across the country and fill up on
No.
diesel fuel. So the charters are only worth that much because teams are actively going in and buying them for that much, like Front Row and Gene Haas. They are spending that much money on it because that's what they are worth, because that's what the buyers are paying for them. So that's your NASCAR economics there. But the way it is just the charter system has turned a lot of fans away because, seeing 36 cars at a race isn't as impressive as seeing those 42 and 43.
Yeah, and there's,
And
definitely I feel
and there's
like
less competitive cars in
qualifying.
general.
Yeah, I mean, just the fall off is crazy. Even with the next gen, the
Mhm.
fall off is insane.
Yeah, I mean the
Well,
difference
I guess
between a
not like
10th place
insane,
car and
but
a 20th place car is
because
pretty
I mean,
staggering.
Justin Haley is running okay in the Rick Ware car, I guess, but
Yeah. But yeah, that's
yeah, it's awful.
that's what we got going on. And with Stewart Haas closing raises a lot of questions about who are going to pick up those other two charters. I'll go to Nico. I'll defer to Nico on this one. The two charters that are remaining, one is going to, I should say, out of the four SHR charters, one is going to Gene Haas, one is going to Front Row. Where would you like to see those other two end up?
Based on what I'm hearing, one of them I think is going to go to Trackhouse,
Hmm.
uh, and it's
That
up
would
in
make
the
that
air
would be
and
their fourth, right?
be their
Third.
third.
What about the 71? Isn't that a full-time car?
That's Spire Strider.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought they were
Um,
running Trackhouse equipment or something.
it's it's a Trackhouse prepared car.
But it's
That's
under
really
Spire leadership. Okay.
yeah. And for the other one, I think it's a toss up. It's either 2311 or RCR realistically, if they want to pull the trigger and go 33 for Noah Gregson. If fantasy one I'd like to see, I know it's not going to happen, but JRM just
Yeah,
gets in
I
there.
mean,
That
it
seems
would
like
be a
both of
total
you are in
dream.
agreement on that, where
It
people want
would
to see
just be a
junior
total
motorsports.
dream.
Well,
Either
earlier in the month, the trademark officially was expired on the DEI 8. That number font and the likeness of that
yeah,
number
yeah, there
8
was some
was
discussion about
retired.
that. It cost some buzz.
Was that?
That's just say
It
that's
caused
just
some buzz. There was a little conversation
Yeah.
about it.
And who knows what Dale Jr. is going to do with it? He could put it on a T-shirt. He could put it on a race car. We don't
it's
know the extent of what Dale Jr. is planning to do with that 8 car. He could pull it out for one race only at Darlington, or he could go hog wild and say, Richard Childress, here's your 8 back. It's the same font as Austin Dillon's 3 car. do what you want with it. Or he could open up his own race shop in Cup and start using the 8 car and have, talk to Richard Childress about changing numbers. Because the 8 was not an original RCR number. You had the 29, the 27, the 31, and the 33, and the 3, of course. Although don't forget about the famous, or maybe infamous, RCR 98. I always think about that one. That one's always fun to think about.
I think Dale's just gonna use that for throwbacks.
Yeah, I was gonna
Even
say,
if
like, you could do a killer 2001 All-Star Game throwback, the one that he won the Pepsi 400 with in 2001.
And
You could easily do
that
that.
would break the diecast market. I mean, that would make so
Oh
much
yeah,
money.
it'll be the
I mean
first
even if
diecast not to DNP in 5 years.
even if Dale does go Cup racing, I think he'd more likely use the 88 than the 8.
Good point, especially because
He might he
Hendrick's not
might
using it anymore.
he might just let RCR have the 3 and the 8 and just use the 88 for his own team.
Yeah, so that will do it for our NASCAR segment. Now we have done a little talking about something that we were going to do last week. Um, I'm sorry, Braden, you want to do a certain top 10 list with Connor, but I am not Connor. So we are going to save that for another day. I'm very different from Connor. We are instead going to pull up a old classic, top 10 favorite backmarker drivers. So because I'm the host and I get to make the rules, what we're going to do is we're going to give like 2 or 3 minutes to open up our notes app on our phone or whatever, or pull out a pen and paper and write down our list of top tens. And then we will blurt them out on the air and see where we compare. So Connor obviously will edit the interim out in recording, but this will be like our encore break, basically, going into the final push. Just about a minute and 10, or I'm sorry, an hour and 10 minutes in here, running a little over time, but either way, we'll give it like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we will be back to you with our top 10 NASCAR backmarker drivers. You guys ready to write it down?
There's too
I
many.
guess,
Too
yeah.
many.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm just going to pull this up right now and write it down. All right, so we have returned with our top 10 picks. I'm going to defer to Nico for our first top 10. We'll see where you lie with that one.
All right, so my top 10 is mainly just 10 names I could remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
So for the first one, Jeb Burton.
Good one.
I just remember he's a
He
Jed
runs
Burton.
all right
Okay.
equipment now with Jordan Anderson's team, right? He's still there.
yeah, but in Cup he was backmarker,
Yeah, that's true.
backmarker.
For Cup, if we're talking about Cup standards, absolutely that counts.
So yeah, Jeb Burton, he was there in 2014, and that's about it.
And then what you got?
Did I just keep going?
Yeah, just keep
10 to
going.
1. All right, number 9, Cole Witt. Again, just another guy that was
Wit.
just another
He
guy
had
that was
one of the
there.
funkiest
Cole
hairstyles
Witt.
I've seen in a long time.
Dude, that speed stick car is legendary.
The only thing I remember him for was driving the 88 for a portion in the Xfinity series. That's about it. Next up, he's my favorite modified driver that I follow, but Patrick Emmerling.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good one.
currently runs with the SS Greenlight 07 guys.
I was gonna say Cole Witt. I remember him mostly for being sponsored by Bad Deodorant and like 7-Eleven deodorant.
Bad deodorant.
Following Patrick, I got BJ McLeod. Everybody
Okay.
loves BJ McLeod. Nothing too extra to note there. Of him, I didn't know if this counted. I didn't know what equipment he drove, but Kenny Wallace.
Okay. He kind of was
Um,
everywhere.
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
yes, I found him funny on TV from time to time when I was watching Race Hub.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy I didn't quite know to put because I didn't watch his early career, Joe Nemechek.
Okay. Yeah.
Old
I mean, he
front row
ran he
Joe.
ran with Hendrick and he got a race win, but most of his career when he was running with Nemco, like his own team,
Yeah,
most of it
that's
was in the back. So I'll give you that one.
that's
He's on
that's
my
pretty
list,
nice.
so
That's what
Okay.
I mostly remember him from.
Okay. Yeah, he's not on mine, but I appreciate it.
And Joe, I got Trevor Bayne.
Okay.
Outside of the Daytona 500, didn't really do much of anything of
I'd
note.
count that. I'd honestly, he's more of just like a shit driver than a backmarker.
And honestly,
Uh,
when he was with the Wood brothers, they were basically back markers anyway. So
yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Um, Following him again, just had to put names down. I put Matt Benedetto. He was like the little guy that could, a little bit of little Mac to him. Made the made the best out of the bad equipment he was in.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot more when he was in a backmarker. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Following him, Quinn Houff. Everybody seems
Oh,
Quinn Houff
yeah.
on Twitter. Little Starcom.
I don't know about that, man.
And
Ever since he pulled that move at Texas, I have not liked that dude at all.
and then number one, my favorite road course ace,
Borset.
Borset. Borset.
Borset.
All right. That's a good one. So, for those that missed it, Nico's top 10, Jeb Burton 10, Cole Witt 9, Patrick Emmerling 8, BJ McLeod 7, Kenny Wallace 6, Joe Nemechek 5, Trevor Bayne 4, Matt DiBenedetto 3, Quinn Houff 2, and Boris said 1. So, Mr. Koryath, what you got for your top 10?
How you doing? How you doing? All right. Make sure I have 10 here.
Yes, it is important that you can count to 10.
Okay. Remember, this is not in order. Well, I will say my favorite out of this list, and I'll just name him first. Landon Castle.
Okay,
Love me,
Yeah, that's a good
Landon
one.
Castle.
that's a good one.
I
First
specifically
rule of stock car
remember.
racing is to learn how to wreck someone without wrecking yourself.
First thing I first remember I have of Landon Castle is NASCAR 14, the 40 car. That shitty
that
camo.
weird camouflage car that was
Yeah,
like two
that weird
camouflage.
shitty
Yeah.
camo. Yeah, it's a big memory of mine. Number 2, I got Jeff Green. Love those Nesquik cars, the
Okay.
yellow and blue.
I had a bottle of Nesquik strawberry milk last night on the way back.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Number 3, B. McLeod. Just a hard worker.
BJ
Lovable guy.
McLeod.
Everyone likes him. Then at number 4, we have JJ Yaley, the Joe Gibbs failure, I like to call him. It's a little harsh, but
It's
number
true.
5.
Yeah.
It is true.
Harsh but
Number
true.
5, I got Joe Nemechek, another guy that I remember from the New Technics NASCAR games, specifically inside line, in that weird like blue 87. Number 6, Ty Dillon.
Okay.
Not the most talented guy ever, but I will say he is the nicest driver I have ever had an interaction with.
Interesting.
It is actually unreal how nice that guy is.
Born and raised
Him
in
and Austin.
Countryland. He had good family values in that old ranch down there in
Now
Hickory, North Carolina.
I don't know if this will count, but I've got Michael McDowell on here.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, no. Hold on. Because I'm the host here, I'll be the arbitrator. He only stepped out of back marker status like 3 years ago.
Recently.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
See, that's
like
what
he
I'm
won the
thinking, Mike.
Daytona
That's what I was
500,
thinking
and
there.
didn't he win a second race? If I'm recalling,
Last year.
Last
Yeah,
year,
the
yes.
Indy Road Course.
Yes. So he stepped out of that, but for the first 10 years of his career, going from Michael Waltrip in the 00 and Phil Parsons in the 98, had these terrible, terrible rides, had Levine family in the 95. I would say that counts because if we're going to count Joe Nemechek, if we're going to count Joe Nemechek because he ran it, or even though he ran at Hendrick, then we should count Michael McDowell because he is currently not in a back marker team. JJ Yaley went from star power team and stepped into back marker status. We should count the reverse where you step out of back marker status.
I think if you had a notable back marker period of your career, I think it counts.
And he definitely did for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Because there's another driver I have on this list that's just like him, except the span is a little longer, where they stepped out of backmarker status.
But
But they've been like on a top team for a little longer. I've got Alex Bowman.
Okay. Yeah.
that's a
What do we think about
little
that, Dan?
It's a little more of a stretch, I'd say.
that's a little more of a stretch just because his back marker reign was from like 2014 to like 2017, and then he went to the 88 in what, 2018? Right?
He had one ride in 2016.
I mean, that's 4 years. I wouldn't. I don't know because like
Because
Is it like right on that
we don't.
line?
I mean, we counted Trevor Bayne for Nico's list, and he was on Roush Fenway, and like that was the
I mean,
worst team he was on.
Fenway.
Yeah, that was bad Roush Fenway. So I,
yeah, but it'd be like
And,
if I was saying like David
we're counting
Reagan.
bad versions of teams. Alex Bowman was on Bad Hendrick.
eh, I don't know.
Eh,
Can,
What do you?
can
2018 and 2019 Hendrick were awful.
can you think of somebody else that would fit the bill a little better? Because like half of your guys, for both you, Nico and Braden, aren't on my list.
I
Okay.
have someone that could be on Dan's list.
Oh, well, I don't know who I'd replace him with.
I'll tell you, Nico,
Uh,
right now. Just one of your drivers are on my list. Just one.
I have one who has a very famous paint scheme in mind.
God, if I was to think of a guy.
I'm gonna say his son
Would AJ Allmendinger count?
I mean he
Because
drove
With
for
I mean,
Penske.
JTG?
I mean, that's like, I mean, it's down there.
But he also drove for
He won at
Penske.
Watkins Glen, but I mean, you never saw that car. Maybe except for like Talladega.
Yeah, but that JTG was the worst team he was on. The worst team that Alex Bowman was
No,
on.
no, he drove for Phoenix. Allmendinger drove for Phoenix as
Oh
well.
yeah.
What? Okay. You want to talk about notable, iconic backmarker periods? What about Kurt Busch?
Too short.
That's one
That's
season.
even shorter than Bowman's.
It's the
That's
most iconic one
because
ever,
Kurt
though.
Busch had a breakdown and couldn't because he had terrible these terrible meltdowns basically. But
It was fucking hilarious.
and then he had to get himself back into it, and I mean that was again like by 2013 he was back at Furniture Row, a winning race team.
I understand that. Look, I'm just making stretches here because
I
like
mean
most of these backmarker guys.
two of your guys are on my list. One of Nico's guys is on my list. You can't think of anybody else that
So
was on a worse team than Alex Bowman and
well,
is
here's the
at least
thing.
a little more likable.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of guys that I like in our backmarkers, and that's kind of hard for me because a lot of these backmarker guys do some stupid shit on the track. I don't care how good they were in their little late model. They do some dumbass stuff sometimes. Like I was mentioning earlier, Quinn Houff, he tries pitting at Texas, tries pitting from the top lane into oncoming traffic, causes a huge wreck. I mean, that's just flat out embarrassing. You cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're getting sidetracked. We'll roast Braden later. Braden
All right, well,
continue after
I'll
Alex
finish my
Bowman.
list. Listen.
Give
I'll
me
figure it
your
out.
last ones because I'm not counting Alex Bowman.
All right, I'll replace him with Anthony Alfredo. Does that count?
Perfect.
Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Anthony Alfredo. Boom. All
Dude
right.
wipes.
I
That's
got
great.
Cole Witt. I added Cole Witt because
Okay.
Nico said it. I love Cole Witt. Loved the speed stick car. And then I've got Travis Quapple.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
Guy who got arrested, but we'll settle. That's why he's at 10, because he loses points for getting arrested. All right. You guys are gonna be I wiped the table with this list. I'm just telling you right now. Number
I had
10,
a feeling.
Joey Gase. He has the iconic
Joey
sandwich
Gase.
meme,
Okay.
and he has never run for a good team in his life, but yet he owns a team now with Pat Emmerling, and you put Pat Emmerling
Not
in your
anymore.
list. And
Pat got out of that deal.
oh, okay. So now it's just Joey Gase racing. Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. Still, owner driver, modern day. What did we talk about earlier? Stuart Haas paved the way. Now, number 9, I'm going with Brian Keselowski. That guy is
Oh
excellent.
wow.
Like, I've actually talked to him on Twitter a couple times. He is an excellent guy. He's done great work with the Bonneville Salt Flats, like trying to recreate or break the land speed record and stuff like that. Like he has got all these side ventures and stuff like that. He spots for his brother occasionally, like he's now a NASCAR spotter, that kind of thing. And he does racing on the side. Like he's a cool guy, and he's one of those guys you would sit down and have a nice dinner with, that kind of thing. I remember the 2013 Daytona 500. He qualified in the 52. I'm pretty sure that was a Jimmy Means car. And rest is history. I
Okay.
mean, he didn't have a successful Cup career. He raced in the 92 a couple times in Cup, and then he did it in Xfinity as well. He had, if I recall correctly, the 2011 Daytona 500, he qualified, finished 42nd in the 92, but he had he didn't have a sponsor that weekend, and then Brad Keselowski's guys went up to him and said, "Hey, we'll put discount tire stickers on your car," because he qualified for the race, because he didn't have, during practice or qualifying, or during the duels, he didn't have any sponsorship on his car. So there you go. Number 8, BJ McLeod. Now you guys, Nico had him at 4. Braden
Like I
had him
said,
at
my guys are
3.
not ranked in order. I only
Yeah,
had one
so
guy ranked in a specific spot, and that's Landon Castle. He's at number 1.
right. So there you go. And I've got McLeod at 8. I think that's a respectable spot. He hasn't done much, but he's a all around good guy.
Hard worker. Hard
Just
working guy.
just there to have fun. Andy Belmont takes my 7 spot. He kind of took over that. If you ever watch series of the Field Fillers with Brock Beard, we could probably.
I've seen a
I
few of them.
have his phone number. I could probably get him on the show at some point. He has
Brock
Discord.
Beard?
I've told you who I can get. I can get Ward
What?
Burton. I can get Ward Burton. I can get Brock Beard. I can get.
What the fuck? Wait, what?
I can get a couple
No
of different
way.
guys.
Dude,
I
if
can.
you got
All right,
Brock
hold on.
Beard on here,
Hold on. Because Connor's not showing the video of this, I'll just show you this right now, if it will let
oh,
me.
I can't. I'm on my Xbox, so I can't even see the video.
Yeah.
There's Ward Burton. I have his cell number and his email, and then I put in the notes, I wish I could have shot something through the window. So
Ford Burton, that is
there you go. So yeah, we'll have to get him on
sadly.
sometime.
Well, dude, if we had Ward Burton on here, I don't even know if I'd understand half the things he's saying.
Anyways, 6, I have Kirk Shelmerdine. I just think that some of his paint schemes are cool, and he's another guy that just like has an interesting backstory. Number 5, Hermie Sadler. He never tried to play like the brother role because his brother was Elliott Sadler. That's kind of the way I see Austin Dillon and Ty Dillon, where like Austin's the successful big brother, and then Ty Dillon's like this guy further down the street that's like not as relevant, but he's trying to be as relevant. Hermie never tried to be that way. He stayed in his lane. He did a good job. He was a good analyst, and even though he had that tough Virginia accent, like he still makes their people proud. Number 4, J.J. Yaley. He has hopped around from so many teams, and the fact that he was successful at USAC, 2-time USAC champion in 02 and 03, and going over to Joe Gibbs, not having the most success, but he was always there, when a team needed him, and he's still there when teams need him. He puts up impressive performances when he needs to. He had a front row appearance in 2016 for R2 in the 28 car, but still, heck of a driver, heck of craftsmanship. If he got a good ride, I think now at the age of 40, 41, I think that he'd be a little better off. I don't think that he could, be like anything incredible, but he's a hard-working driver and he actually has some talent. So I'll give him that. 3, I've got a guy that I'm very surprised that none of you have on your list, Morgan Shepherd. I mean, the guy went
Oh
on
my god.
Morgan Shepherd. Like you've got Trevor Bain, Boris Said, and Anthony Alfredo on your list.
Dude,
I've got a guy that went on pit road in roller skates. None of your guys rolled down pit road in roller skates, then fell down, hit another car, got back up, and said, I'm a 70-year-old man. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep roller skating on asphalt. That's amazing. That is amazing.
He is literally he is the back marker of all time.
I mean, whether you're a devout Christian or not, like he did all that stuff himself. And the 2001 Pepsi stunt, or not Pepsi stunt, the 2001 chips and drink stunt. You ever hear of that?
Nope.
No, I've not.
So when he had his own truck in 2001. He was at Kansas, and there are photos of it. But they didn't show it on the broadcast. He wanted to protest against NASCAR, basically like trying to blackball back markers. And he pulls down pit lane, and he has no pit crew. He changes the tires himself, fills the fuel himself, then hops up on the wall, opens up a bag of chips, and takes a sip of a fountain drink. And then
Hmm.
he puts his helmet back on. He gets back in the car, starts it up again, puts up the window net, and goes back out on track. Excellent. And he finished that race too in
Oh, I never
2001.
heard of that.
I'm surprised you haven't, but um,
Morgan Shepherd.
that's
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 literally
the
like
ultimate Morgan
that's the
Shepherd
guy.
story. Yeah, that is the
That is
ultimate
the
Morgan.
back marker.
Unfortunately, he's suffering from some sort of Parkinson's now, so he is officially retired, but he's like
Oh,
upper
damn.
80s now. I mean, like John Force took a crazy hit in NHRA at 300 miles an hour the other day. He's in the hospital, but
I
he's
saw that.
75. He's
Yeah, that's
75.
crazy.
Like it's insane how much these racers can get up to. And then number two, I've got JD McDuffie. Never finished on the lead lap
Oh,
in
I haven't heard
his
that name in a
NASCAR
second.
career. And obviously, his death was incredibly tragic. But a guy that had the craftsmanship and but also the skill go out there building his own cars, doing it the old school way in the 80s and 90s, and then unfortunately passing away doing what he loved. Can't be mad at that. Number one, I've got Carl Long, the guy who
Oh,
embodies everything that a back marker is. There's not many people like Carl Long who have been screwed over by so many people and has gotten the worst luck of a lifetime. Um, like NASCAR fined him $100,000 and suspended him for basically 3 months because he had a engine that was like a fraction of an inch, maybe not even a fraction, like a microscopic amount bigger than it needed to be. Wasn't even helping him. It didn't give him any advantage, but yet because it was against the rules, they levied the largest fine ever handed against a team owner in NASCAR history, which has now been beaten since the Spingate scandal. And I think there was one more that was levied against another team owner. But at the time, in 2009, with the winged COTs, when this happened, it was the largest fine ever levied against a NASCAR team owner. And like his resilience through that to take on a $100,000 fine and a 3-month suspension for a team that was already having financial woes as is, and still be running 15 years later, an incredible feat. And the fact that he still has the cadence of a young boy, even though he's in his 50s and 60s now, running MBM in Cup and Xfinity, working with other team owners in the garage, he still does the old school way. And that would be definitely one of my picks. Now, if we were just talking about all NASCAR back markers, Brad Smith would be on my list, 100%. I've actually met him before. He's an excellent guy. But he never ran a cup race. I don't think he ever ran a national series race, but Brad Smith is Brad Smith. So there you have it. If you missed it, Nico's top 10 was Boris said 10, I'm sorry, Boris said 1, Quinhouse 2, DeBenedetto 3, Bain 4, Nemechek 5, Kenny Wallace 6, BJ McLeod in 7, Emmerling 8, Witt 9, and Jeb Burton 10. For Braden, his number one spot was Landon Castle, and then the rest were in no particular order: Jeff Green, BJ McLeod, JJ Yaley, Joe Nemechek, Ty Dillon, Mike McDowell, Anthony Alfredo, Cole Witt, and Travis Kvapil. Mine
one
was Joe.
change. I want to make
Yes,
one change.
audible.
Replace Anthony Alfredo with David Rudiman.
Good pick. Good pick there. So he slides in there between McDowell and Witt. But then my top 10: Gase 10, Brian Kez in 9, McLeod 8, Belmont 7, Shelmerdine 6, Hermie 5, Yaley 4, Shepard 3, McDuffie 2, and Carl Long 1. So there you have it. I mean, this was an excellent Kona 2Cast episode. Of course, Connor will have a lot of editing to do. I have sent him all of the timestamps of Braden's F
Poor
bombs,
guy.
but
Oh my
um,
God.
he asked me to do that. He asked me to do that to make it
No
easier
way.
for him. I sent it to him down to the second. So you're in for a treat. I want to Braden, you also have to make sure I have a job that I have to keep as well. So I don't want to tick anybody off. But anyways,
You know who I'm
big
surprised nobody said? Nobody
Which
said
guy?
Josh Wise.
Oh,
Josh Wise, that's a good one. He's another
I
he's
don't
another
know if he would.
friend
I,
good
I don't know if
Kona.
he would have made my top 10. At best, he would have slid in like the 7 or 8 slot. But I like
Well, see,
where you're going with
I
that.
don't have I don't have the knowledge. I feel like I don't have the knowledge that you do, Dan. So Josh definitely would have made my list if I thought of him.
Yeah, he probably would have slid in my 7 or 8 spot above Belmont or Shelmerdine. But anyways, that wraps up this week's edition of the Kona 2 cast. Big thanks to Connor Spradling for having me in the booth and having me as the lead man for this week. Obviously, I don't know what is in store next week. I don't know if you guys have a guest planned or what you have. You guys know more than me. But
We
big
were
thanks to.
supposed to have a guest.
What's that?
We were supposed to have a guest, but I think he backed out, so
Oh
I think
boy.
it'll just be us three.
Well, there you have it. I mean, obviously it's been a nice 2 weeks with me recording with you guys, being the guest last week, being, on the hot seat, being interviewed, and now being back on stage as the front man. So um, this has been this week's edition of the Kona 2 cast from Nico Servideo, Braden Koryoff. I'm Dan Wilkins. We'll see you next week. And Connor Spradling, to you, my friend, good luck editing this week's video. That'll be all for us tonight. Have a good one, folks.